This is the best wrist rest that you can't even buy. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how I exactly made it. This one I've specifically made for work and I'll be guiding you through on how to make it. Before we start, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor, Keysfan.com.
This guy still has unactivated Windows. I keep telling him to activate it, but he won't listen. You know what that means.
Bro, this guy locked the door again. I know how to fix this. Where's my wallet? Check out Keysfan.com for cheap Windows keys. If you use coupon code BEZ50, you can get 50% off Windows licenses. And if you use code BEZ62, you can get 62% off Microsoft Office. And they also have a Microsoft Office and Windows 11 bundle. You can pay via PayPal, and they have a pretty good customer support team. Check out Keysfan, linked in the description. And don't get locked in your room with Mr. Gorilla. You're gonna need a couple of different materials. The first one is a piece of wood that's easy to cut. I'm using a piece of balsa wood here, but you can use whatever you'd like. The width of the wood is also really important as you need enough space for your wrist to sit. So do think about it when you're buying the wood. I'd highly recommend to use something a little bit more dense than what I've used here, the balsa wood, as it was rigid, but unfortunately it was quite brittle when I was stapling into it. The wood is the base. Now what makes it soft? We're using camping foam here. This is actually quite a simple solution. So camping mattress foam, it's very cheap to buy. We're going to cut a piece, we're going to lay it down. Now the rest of the materials are optional per se. I've got a couple of pieces of microfiber cloth just to make it a little bit softer, and I've also got this blue microfiber cloth here that has a little bit of foam in between, so it's a little bit of extra cushioning. Additionally, you will also need some random piece of cloth just to add up for cushioning, but it really depends. Do keep in mind, don't put too much as it will get too tall. For the top, I'm using some black PU leather just because it's for the office. I wanted a bit of a more plush look. You're also going to need a pair of scissors, a staple gun, and a hot glue gun. You can substitute the hot glue gun for super glue, but you will have to wait longer. Let's go ahead and start the project now. So grab your piece of wood and measure it up against your keyboard. I would highly recommend to make it slightly longer than your keyboard, just so you get a little bit of extra space to put your wrist while you have your hand down. Once you've got your piece of wood measured out, I'm using a very crude method here, so I'm scoring the wood exactly on the length that I want it, then I'm just cutting it in half. Do be careful if you do use this. I would highly recommend to use something to actually cut it, like a Dremel tool or something along the lines of that, but for me this worked out pretty well. Next up, we are cutting the foam exactly to the size of the piece of wood, and that's a pretty quick process to do. So just cut your piece of foam out and then place it on the piece of wood, trace it out, then cut the foam out. The next step is to glue the piece of foam onto the piece of wood. So for me, I'm actually using hot glue, but you want to be very careful here because the hot glue will melt the foam. So we don't want to put too much, but we don't want to put little as it does need to stick well. Now, of course, you could use super glue, but for me, this is what I had available. Next up is to add your extra pieces of foam. So for me, this is the extra cushioning. So I'm adding the blue layer of cloth, the microfiber foam, same process as before, and then I'm gluing it on. Next up, I'm adding my extra layers of material, which are not microfiber cloths because I didn't want it to pile on too high. So this is just a cheap piece of cloth that I found from a store called Spotlight. It was just very cheap. Now I'm just crudely cutting this out to a general shape of the wrist rest. So I'm using around about 5 to 6 layers here, and I'm ironing them out so they're nice and flat. to make sure that there's no wrinkles. I would highly recommend to individually iron them out and then fully iron them out as a one piece later on. Once that's all done, we want to put the base of the wrist rest, so the wood, the camping foam, on top of the piece of material as we can see on screen. Then fold our extra pieces of material over the piece of wood, and now we're going to grab our staple gun and we're going to staple down into the base wood. Go slow and make sure you go even on these staples. I'm not the best example for showing how to fold in the material, but do try your best. I'm not trying to do a pill shape as that's pretty hard to do, so I'm just doing a normal rectangle as that's easier. Once I stapled them down, I also cut the excess fabric off from the middle as it's not needed, and I applied a little bit of hot glue just in case. You can see the general shape of the wrist rest coming together here, and now the last step for me is just to put that leather piece on. So same process, but instead this time I'll actually be gluing it down first, as that made it easier, and I'll be folding in the sides, as you can see, a little bit of a rectangle just so it comes in a nice shape, and lastly I'll be stapling it down just to make sure that everything is good to go. And there we go, we have our wrist rest finally made. This beautiful thing is our own custom design, and it's something that I can actually use at work and is very presentable. I think that overall it's a good project to take on if you guys are a little bit sick of finding wrist rests that don't fit your needs. And for me, this one is especially true. I think it's a good project as well for sustainability, as although I did buy things here, you definitely can use recycled materials or head over to an op shop to make this wrist rest, which is pretty much what it's aimed at. Previous wrist rests that I've been made out of previous materials that I've just been discarded, so it's a good overall project for sustainability. That about sums up the video. Check out wisec.org for some more awesome content, but other than that, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!